Hi, everybody. I'm Becca, and I'm a bookseller at Belmont Books, which, for those of you who don't know, is an independent and locally owned bookstore in Belmont, Massachusetts, which is pretty much just right outside of Cambridge, Mass. And before we begin, I'd just like to let everybody know of some other virtual events that are coming up in August. So the first is Nicola Harrison, who's the author of The Showgirl, and she will be in conversation with Fiona Davis on August 12th. And the second is Gary Goldstein, who's the author of The Last Birthday Party, and he will be in conversation with Susan Walter on August 16th, which is very exciting. And you can register for both of those events on our website, which is belmontbooks.com, and I'll be sending out a link to that in just a moment. So if you have any concerns during the event, please feel free to message me in the chat. And if you have any questions for the authors, please type them into the Q&A section, which is a Zoom feature. And they'll hope to get to as many questions as they can. And we just feel really lucky to have both Elizabeth and Edith here with us. And I'll just tell you a bit about them, and then I'll turn the event over to them. So the first is Elizabeth de Veer, who is, of course, the author of the new novel, The Ocean in Winter. And Elizabeth has a Master of Theological Studies from Harvard Divinity School and has been admitted to writing residencies at the Gentile Artist Residency, the Hambidge Center for Creative Arts and Sciences, and the Virginia Center for the Creative Arts. Elizabeth is also a member of several writing groups, including Grub Street Writers Collective of Boston, the Newburyport Writers Group, Sisters in Crime New England, and the New Hampshire Writers Project. She currently lives in a small town in Northeast Massachusetts with her husband, daughter, and Labradoodle. And in conversation with Elizabeth is Edith Maxwell, who is also known as Maddie Day under her pen name. She spent some of her adult life writing technical documentation in the software industry. She also wrote features and essays as a freelance journalist, edited medical texts, published several articles, and wrote a dissertation to earn her doctorate in the field of linguistics. She is now a full-time mystery fiction novelist and has written a number of novels, including her latest, A Changing Light. She currently lives in Amesbury, Massachusetts. She has 2 grown sons and lives in an antique house with her significant other and kitten. So I will be sending out links for you guys to purchase both of their books in just a moment, and also some other information about them. We're so excited to have you guys here again, and without further ado, I'll turn the event over to you guys. Thanks so much for being here.
Great. Thank you, Becca. Thank you to Belmont Books for having us. And Elizabeth is going to start it off, kick it off with a short reading from the new book.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, everyone. I'm so happy to not see you. I know you're there, but I can't see you. So I'm just going to read you just from the very first page and a half of my novel, and then we'll take it from there. So this is from the point of view of Riley, Sunday, March 2nd. I am hurtling through Massachusetts at the rate of speed I cannot understand. The wind blows my cheeks, but it does not feel cold. I know only generally where I am going, deep into the state's northeast corner, where small towns cluster at the coast like grapes, nestled by a fragile barrier island at the mouth of the Merrimack River. The towns, blanketed now in briny mist, go by these names: Rowley, Newbury, Newburyport, Salisbury, and inland, the city of Amesbury, the rough-edged, river-fed mill town where my sisters and I grew up, a place I left when I was 18 and never returned to. The town was too small for me, I suppose, and too much had happened for me and Amesbury to pretend that we had ever been all that close. A storm has been raging here all day, but now the rain has stopped. In this strange moment, I come to stand on the doorstep of a house in the town of Newbury that I have never seen before, an old farmhouse whose white paint and green trim are cracked and peeling, wooden beams rotted. Behind me, I leave no footprints in the cold mud. What year is this? I think for a moment. Wait, how do I not know the answer immediately? It's 2014. The answer comes to mind like a vague memory, as though the question itself does not matter. The house belongs to my oldest sister, Alex. Time is confusing to me. How long has it been since I saw her? Years, I think, but how many? 4, 5, 6, more, maybe 7. I pushed her away. I pushed everyone away to protect my ugly little secrets. Regret lingers in my throat like bile. I've made so many mistakes. I glance through the front window. The room beyond is pitch black. The electricity in this area is out and has been out for a couple of hours. In the woods beyond the clearing, trees creak high and low like old rocking chairs, swaying slowly in one direction and then the other. The effect is eerie, ghostly. Many secrets stand between me and my sisters, Alex and Colleen, but not all will be revealed tonight. Tomorrow, after dawn breaks, one of these secrets shall become known. Others will unfold in the days to follow. I stand for a moment at the threshold of this house and take a deep breath of damp, mossy air while a chill wind presses against my neck and blows my hair in my face. Alex is inside alone. She is not waiting for me. In fact, she is not expecting my visit. I raise my fist to the door and rap my knuckles against it. One moment passes and then another. Nothing happens, so I knock again. Finally, Alex opens the door a crack. "Hello," she whispers. "Is someone there, Colleen?" "Alex, it's me," I say, pushing my hair away from my face. "Riley." "Riley," she says, incredulous. Then she opens the door the rest of the way. She points her flashlight toward me. I squint in the light and raise my hand to shield my eyes. From the shadows, Alex stares, her pale face wide-eyed with fear and surprise. Slowly, her expression registers recognition, and she gasps. "Riley." She pulls me inside and slams the door to leave the wind and wildness behind us.
Bravo.
And there it
Bravo.
begins.
Oh my God, Elizabeth, that is such a beautiful opening scene. I told you right before we started and earlier that this is a really stunning novel. It's a stunning novel for anybody, and it's a stunning debut novel. Seriously, I mean,
Thank you.
Seriously. I met Elizabeth maybe 2 years ago. We're in this Newburyport Writers cross genre writers group, and she was so modest. I didn't hear that she had a book coming out until a couple months before it came out. I went, "What? You do? From who?" I'm so glad. I'm so glad it came out. And I was lucky enough to attend the in-person launch party on a patio of a local library. It had rained all day. The sun came out to shine on Elizabeth and like 50 people. It was beautiful. So that was fabulous. So you have woven the viewpoints of these three sisters, Alex, Colleen, and Riley, so expertly, intertwining about something that happened in the past. It's not really a spoiler to say that Alex discovered their mother having died by suicide in the bathtub when Alex was 11, Colleen was 8, and Riley was 4, I think. And then their father, it's on the book jacket, so I figured it's not a spoiler. And the father's emotional shutdown. And the after effects are still happening, maybe intensifying now, all these years later. And still, it's there's a lot of darkness and sadness and angst in this book, but there are joys you weave in. And the ending, which of course I won't speak about, really is a genius combination of sadness and joy. I mean, it's really, really beautiful. So, I mean, I have my 25th book is coming out in 2 weeks, all traditionally published. And I can get ideas from seeing some random person walk down the street, from a news article, mostly from my overactive imagination. Where did you get the idea for this book? What was the germ of the story? Tell us about that.
Absolutely. And first I need to tell you that I'm sitting in front of a window and my 10-year-old daughter is on the other side of the window making faces at me. So I apologize if I seem like I'm doing the Queen's wave. It's just to my daughter who says, "Hello, everyone."
And who was adorable, I met her at the book launch. So, yeah.
Yep. She was there.
Yeah.
So there were a few different sources for this story. And I would actually say that one of the early inspirations actually was house hunting. We were living in Arlington, Massachusetts, And we kept coming up to the North Shore, like we kept coming up to Rowley and Newburyport just to spend the day, and Amesbury too, actually. You know, just to kind of wander around, and we always ended up getting ice cream, then we ended up in an antique store, or we ended up at the beach, or we had a lobster roll or whatever. And then we kind of thought, oh, we're doing that so often, why don't we come up here why don't we move here? Why not? And so we started house hunting, and then the one thing I decided I wanted was a working fireplace. And as it happens, that is a very tall order to get an old house with a working fireplace, because everybody just lets their, well, I mean, you know, in a certain income bracket, like depending on how much money you want to spend. But many times with the less expensive houses, they've run down a little bit. People haven't maintained the fireplaces or the chimneys, and so it's hard to find. It's hard to find that. And we had a real estate agent who was a lovely woman in Gloucester, and we had her bring us to so many houses, and she was so patient. And actually, she ended up quitting her real estate agency after she worked with us, after we found our home, which we're sure is not connected, but maybe it is. I don't know. And but just every time we went into a house, there was this feeling like the house had a story to tell. And there was just this thinking that we did about who had been there before. And that meant sort of like recently, like who's living there now. And sometimes just the way the things were configured didn't seem like you would expect a family to live. And so we would think about like, why were they setting things up this way? But also, who are the generations? You know, looking at old New England houses, you think about the generations that came before. And all this made me think about ghosts, of course. And somebody named Ann Daly looked like posted a comment in chat, which, spoiler alert, she's my sister. So hi, Ann. So she posted a question about ghosts. So we were definitely sort of thinking, I was thinking about ghosts connected to houses. And then I thought I really wanted to write a ghost story, but I wanted it to be deeply connected to the characters in the story. And I wanted the ghosts to reveal something important about the characters. And so that started me on thinking about ghosts, not so much as something that lives outside of us, but as a part of us, and almost like a projection of just something that is essential to us, and maybe a grief thing. And so I kind of somewhat randomly chose the story about the suicide of the mother as being the focus of the grief that the three sisters are carrying with them. And so I would say that is like those two pieces were the germ of the story. And if you'll notice in the book, each funny little character has a funny little house attached to them, and it very much mirrors the characters and their stories. So that's, if you haven't read it yet, that's something to keep an eye on.
That's great. That's perfect. Thank you. I had no idea about all that. I've lived in antique houses since I moved to Boston in 1982 and on the North Shore, so I know that thing. So the three sisters each experienced so many different hardships and quests and heartbreaks. And I'm thinking, but I don't know you that well personally, that you might not have experience with living in India, with drug addiction, with houses burning down, with foster system, or maybe you do. So how did you research those scenes? And I found them all believable and engrossing. So you had me. And I don't have personal experience with any of those things. So how did you research those?
Oh, thank you. Well, so there's a spectrum there from I have experience to I haven't experienced. And the India story is from my life experience. And actually the story about Alex, which again is not a spoiler, I think it's like chapter 2 or 3. Alex trying to leave India and having a ticket but not an airplane reservation, and finding that extremely complicated, is actually something that my husband and I experience in 2003 when we were traveling in India. And I'll tell you, I mean, I can't remember now exactly how much time. I kind of think we went to the airport, like, let's say 2 or 3 o'clock on one day. And we stood in the airport and people kept telling us, oh, we'll get you on a plane. We just had to get to London. We'll get you on a plane. We'll get you on a plane. And I think it was like 2 in the morning, the airport closed down and we never got on a plane. And then we just had this panicky feeling, like, because we kept being close, but not close enough. And it was so crowded and so busy. And then we went to a nearby hotel, which was the extremely high price of $40 a night. But that was the most, I mean, you know, we were paying $4 a night to stay wherever we were. So, it was, you know, it was so stressful. And we came back at like 4 in the morning. And, you know, finally, middle of that day, we made it to London. But it just had that, it sounds ridiculous, but it just had that stressful, we don't know what to do feeling of like, there's nobody we can call, there's nothing we can do. We kind of just have to sit in the airport until something opens up. And so that part is real life. Let's see, then the rest of them are imagined in terms of, I've never had a house burned down. I've never had a drug addiction. I've never had a child taken away into foster care. And all of that was just basic research. You know, I sat down early on, I sat down with the chief of police, chief of the fire department in Georgetown. And actually had a couple of good conversations with them. And then, of course, when I was clarifying a lot of the situations, I really reached deep into the community that we have here. And so I had to call on the parents of my daughter's Brownie troop members. And I had several like long conversations. She has one friend whose father is in FEMA. And it turned out he had been an EMT in Amesbury kind of at the same time that their mother was found dead. So he said to me, I can tell you exactly how that scene of finding the mother in the bathtub would have worked out. And the way he drew it out was nothing like I had imagined it. So I just was like, thank you, Sean Sanderson. And I put him in the acknowledgements and everything. And then another mom was a nurse, and we had a long talk about what it meant to be a nurse. And then with the foster care stuff, that was another sort of 11th hour. I mean, I put down how I imagined things would go. And then just, you know, very last stage of editing, somebody said, no, you need to go back and talk to people who have been through this situation. And I somehow connected with a compassionate woman in Boston. You know, I don't even know the child services. And she put me in touch with several people who had recently adopted children through the foster care system. And I'll tell you, Edith, I had phone calls with people that I had never met. And they were telling me about, you know, adopting their special needs child and, you know, the whole process and all of the complications and the trauma and, you know, and then how the process went and everything. And then there was kind of like one more just kind of technical piece. It was mostly about when a child is in foster care and a family wants to come and connect with them. And I could not get anybody to return my calls. And I thought there must be somebody somewhere. And it turned out I wasn't thinking, but I had a friend on Facebook who I'm not that close with in real life, but I sent her a note and said, I think you work in social services in New York, is that right? And she said, yeah, give me a call. And she, again, spent an hour and a half on the phone with me, pulled me through the process, you know, gave me her perspective on how those things play out, you know, kind of said, you know, and I said, would it ever work this way? And she was like, oh, absolutely not. In a million years, it does not go that way. It goes this other way. And I was like, oh, thank you for talking to me.
I mean, I've found the same thing, that experts, they want they want people to know how it really works. They want you to get it right in your book. And so generally they're happy to go, sure, I'll talk to you about it. Especially if they get their name, if they get their name in the acknowledgments, like who doesn't want to have their name in a book? So, right. Oh, that's great.
Exactly.
Now we also know you have a Master's of Divinity degree.
Mm-hmm.
Do you work as a minister?
I don't. I never had the idea of being a minister. I had originally, the plan was to be Indiana Jones, I think was the job title. It was basically biblical archaeology was what I really wanted to do. And I got my degree, which was kind of a bridge degree for going on for a PhD. And what I kind of realized very quickly was that languages are a very, very important piece of that. And like ancient languages, modern languages, as many languages as you can get in there, and as fluent as you can. And then it's super competitive. So, you know, if your Assyrian is not up to snuff, I mean, there's somebody else whose Assyrian is great and they get to do the dig, you know, in Israel, and you get left behind. And I quickly realized that that was simply not, I would not be able to run that race. So I finished my master's degree, and then I kind of had the thought too that at some point I would like to have my professional, my day job kind of take at least a back seat or like a same level seat with my writing, and not necessarily put the onus on my creative life to fund the rest of my life. So
that's smart. That's very smart.
Yeah. So I realized that if you're running, you know, as fast as you can in like a competitive thing, you're not going to have room to sort of say, I'm going to back off a little bit. So I went a different direction, but it was such a wonderful experience. It really just was a joy.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah.
And I do work in a church. Actually, it's I work in a church now, which is more of an anthropology project than anything else, but it's wonderful.
Good. I was going to say that I know one mystery author who is a pastor, Jane Willen. Yeah. And she writes a sister
Agatha.
Sister Agatha and Father Selwyn series. And I know of a couple of, like Julia Spencer Fleming writes a Episcopalian Claire Ferguson priest, but Julia is not a priest herself. So anyway, that was, I love that, hearing a Master in Divinity.
I know. Well, so I'll tell you, Edith, I went to the Crime Bake conference of the Sisters in Crime New England, which I'll share with everybody that I am a member of, and you are running the conference.
I am a past co-chair of the conference, and I'm a past president of the Sisters in Crime New England chapter. Yeah.
Well, it was, so I went, that's where I met Jane, was to go and sit at a table and just talk to people about whatever they were there to talk about. And so I just thought, well, I'll go talk to whoever's at the pastoral concerns table, because I work at a church, and she was wonderful. She just was a delight. And that whole conference was incredible. Yeah. It was a great experience.
So it's scheduled to be in person the second weekend in November. I think they're still deciding if they're going to go in person or virtual. But it is for writers, anybody who wants to write crime fiction or is writing, go to Crime Bake, join Sisters in Crime. Absolutely. Yeah.
It's the best organization.
Yeah. And this book is not a crime, it's not crime fiction, but it definitely has mystery in it. It has mystery woven all through. Not the least, what's going on in that first scene, you know? So we find out, but no, really lovely. So all readers will love this book. Wherever you are, I think I see some names that are far afield, but those familiar with the North Shore, north of Boston, will particularly go, oh, a cottage in Newbury? Oh, a beach house on Plum Island? Oh, a house on Greenwood Street in Amesbury, which is like a mile from where I live. And where does Colleen live? Where is Colleen's house?
Oh, she lives in a lovely little development right outside Newburyport.
Okay.
Yes,
I couldn't
in
remember.
a beautiful new house. I mean, she's not
Yeah.
right on High Street, but she's maybe, is it like Turkey Hill or
Okay, yeah.
maybe too far to bike if you're little, but like an older person could bike. And she jogs many, many miles a day. So she would certainly like not think twice about running into Newburyport and coming home.
Yeah. Okay. I just couldn't quite remember. Why those settings in particular? And have you lived in Amesbury? Like, why Greenwood Street? I know Greenwood Street quite well.
I don't even remember why Greenwood Street. I think that was just sort of like find a place on a map, kind of a thing. But so when I first started writing this book, actually, ironically, I was setting it in Gloucester, and my daughter was like 3 or 4 at the time. And I remember one day my time was very precious. My writing time was very, very short. And I drove to Gloucester, and it was 45 minutes. And I just thought, I can't have a book set here where I need to make trips here during my writing time. It's going to be too much time. I won't have my writing time.
Right.
And so then I thought, well, I should just set it in the places where I am. And that's where we was Amesbury and Newburyport and Newbury, because those are very close to Georgetown, where I live. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it's not a judgment call. It's just sort of, there's a house in the book in the town of Newbury, and it's very isolated, and it's right on the marsh, and it's very quiet, which, Newbury has places like that. And Newburyport is very much about, Colleen is a Newburyport mom. I mean, she's, slender and beautiful, and she dresses great. And that's all part of her mission statement as a person. Her house is exactly the way she wants it, and she's married exactly the right, man, and she's had a son and a daughter, and everything's falling into place until it isn't. Very much isn't. And then she gets to kind of deal with the reality. And Amesbury was sort of, Amesbury is a lovely town, and we love it. And I guess that was more about someplace, though, that was a little too quiet for Riley. And then the girls growing up, sort of in a little place, a little house that was a little tired, and maybe that kind of rubbed off too, that you're either Alex, who just accepted things the way they were and kind of went on without asking questions, or you're Colleen, who said, this is not how things need to be. I need to move to the other side of the river where things are shinier. And, or you're Riley, who just said, goodbye.
I'm out of here. Yeah.
I'm out of here. Mm-hmm. So that was kind of the inspiration. But I know the playgrounds in all those places.
Of course you do. Of course, and the bathrooms, I'm sure.
And the coffee.
The coffee. So let's talk a little bit about your journey to publishing. I know that there are many sort of budding authors these days who decide to go straight to publishing their first book themselves. Mm-hmm. It's hard to find an agent. It's hard to find a mainstream publisher. For me, like all my 25 books have been traditionally published, and it's worth it. It was worth it to wait till I found an agent and contracts to have that support and the sort of recognition of mainstream publishing. You told me briefly that you had written 2 previous novels and had a lot of rejections with this one and with finding an agent. And you were in the process of self-publishing it. When you did get an offer, why did you accept a traditional publisher? And are you glad you did? And why? Talk about that.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So just to reiterate the beginning of the story. So I wrote 2 novels, and then my daughter was born. And actually, the funny story is that I I had posted my first novel on, I don't even know what, some website where I think mostly authors would read the novel and then post comments underneath it. And so, and my first novel, you know, and I was doing the agent search and just getting, you know, I mean, everybody would read it, but nobody wanted to represent me. But everybody on this website was just posting very, 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 very positive reviews. And so after my daughter was born, I showed that to my husband, and he kind of said, oh, we've got to find you a literary agent. And I said, well, good luck, because what have I been doing for the past 4 or 5 years? I've been doing everything, you know, I've been going to conferences and pitching at conferences and talking to agents and, you know, doing my query letters and, you know, the whole process. So I was like, what can you do that I have not been doing? And so he did, my first novel was set in the Dust Bowl, the Oklahoma Dust Bowl. And so he did a Google search on like literary agent Oklahoma Dust Bowl. And what he found was a literary agent who had a note on his website saying, dear children's authors, if you have a book about the Oklahoma Dust Bowl, please do not send it to me. I don't want any more books.
Wow. Wow.
Well, I guess he sent him an email and said, what about an adult book? And he said, well, I'll look at it. And one thing led to another. And he, Stephen Chudney, ended up representing me. And that's the circuitous route to your literary agent, which I think is how it works many times. It is. It's like your mother's dentist nephew is a literary agent. Do you want him to look at your book? And then it's like somehow it all falls into place after a lot of head banging. It's just how it goes. Yeah. And so Stephen Chudney represented my first novel, and he sent it around to loads of places, and it just got rejected. And then my second novel, same thing. And then I was like, well, I'll come back to work on this one, which I'd started before my daughter was born. And so, you know, I finished it, and he did one round of circulating and just got rejections. And he said, you know, so we agreed that I would go back and do some more work on it. And then he was shopping that around, and again, just getting rejection after rejection. And I had a conversation with him where I said, you know, if we're just going to keep getting rejected, I'm going to just try to put this out there, because I imagined that there would be readers, you know, I would be able to find an audience for this, and then, you know, who knows what would happen next. And to my mind, he said something like, okay, that's probably a good idea. So that was maybe like winter of, let's say 2018. And then we got our last round of rejections, and then I went to work planning and strategizing and learning all about the independent publishing process, which is very detailed, and there's a lot to it. And I spent the next, I don't know, 9 or something months putting everything in place. I was going to go ahead and do it. And then I got, right before Christmas, I think, of 2018, I got an email from Stephen saying, I sent your book out to 3 more editors. And I said, you did what now? Because I thought we were done. Right. And he said, we're not quite done. We would have written divorce papers if we were really done. And I said, okay, well, I'm doing this other thing now, so just get these rejections, and then I can move on with that. And then it was after Christmas that he did get the offer from Blackstone Publishing. And I was thoroughly relieved, because in my research about independent publishing, I think it's a phenomenal option. I think books that are independently published that are good find their audiences. I think that, you know, people, you have to learn how to tap dance and how to research and think on your feet and be open to everything as an independent author, but you have to do that as a traditionally published author anyway. So I think it's great. The only thing is that I think there are certain genres that really fly with independent publishing, and standalone literary fiction is not one of them. So I was thrilled to get to get an offer from a traditional publisher, and it was really a no-brainer at that point. I mean, I was happy to get it out there, but this was just so much of a better option. The marketing behind them is just so much of a more robust engine, and and the design. I just was thrilled with how the cover
Beautiful.
came out.
It's beautiful.
It's
Yeah.
beautiful. So I have absolutely only happy things to say about that experience, but I will say, I mean, I'm grateful for having spent 9 months or whatever it was as a student of independent publishing. I felt like it taught me a lot. I felt like it taught me to, it taught me that I need to think on my feet, and that that you just say yes to everything. So
Great,
so
great. Yeah. And it may come in handy in the future. You don't know.
You never know.
Yeah. Now, tell us a little bit about your writing process. I mean, I didn't start writing fiction in earnest until both my sons were either in college or out of college, and I had left a crappy marriage and got happiness again. And I finally kind of had the space to work on a book around the edges of a full-time job. What's your schedule, and how do you integrate the day job and the writing and the family and the running practice and all that you do?
It's tough, I'll tell you. And there's a before COVID answer to that question, and
right.
The post-COVID answer is I haven't found my footing quite yet. But the before COVID answer was, so I do have this administrative job at a church, and I'd say the bottom line of it is that my time has an economic status to it, and they're sort of like things that I can do while the family is in the house is like the least economically valuable. So the writing is something I really need to be on my own to do. So that's like the highest status. There's work, paid job stuff that I can do while everybody's, like you saw, like everybody's around. Like I can do it, like I can do my work while my daughter's in the backyard with a friend. I can, sort of like, what can I double team? But the writing is like the highest, I don't know, whatever the way the pyramid goes. Yeah, I guess it's a pyramid. Here we go. So the writing is on the top, with like the most expensive time, the most precious time. And before COVID, I was able to find 2 or 3 days a week to go and sit someplace away from my house, a library or a cafe or whatever, and really just sit with it and get it done. And actually, when I got the edits for the book, which were amazing and so thorough, and by the amazing editor Jennifer Pooley, but they were big, they were heavy, and it came down November, like right before Thanksgiving of 2019. So the publisher, I think usually you've got like 8 weeks. And I said to them, first of all, now it's Thanksgiving, and then the day after Thanksgiving is Christmas, and my daughter will be home every day, and it's going to be very challenging. And they said, okay, well, here's the deal. Take the time you need, do your very, very, very best work, and get it to us when you can. And it was like my college thesis. It was like I got my butt in the chair, and if I was not like cooking food or taxiing children or doing the day job, I was at work, no question. And I turned in my edits, let's say March 7th or 8th, 2020. Oh. And I literally, it was hearing the bongos, the COVID bongos in the jungle. And I knew I had 1 week. And to what? I didn't know what was at the end of that week, but I knew that something was on its way. And so I had like 1 week to do the big grocery shopping and see the eye doctor. And for some reason I needed a pedicure. I felt like that would be important. and kind of came up for air. And then you know, we all know what happened next.
Yeah, right, right.
And then when I was ready, after kind of recovering from that, when I was ready to come back to writing and work on my current work in progress, which is a crime novel. And when I was ready to do that, it's just been very challenging, but the gift that I gave myself was to get up as early as I could in the morning before everybody else, get my coffee, sit down in the chair, get the words on the page, and then check in with Ramona's Sprint Club, which is a gift. And just checking in with everybody. And Wendy and Ramona it's a joy, and everybody, and seeing you, and it's usually sort of, so you check in on Facebook at 7 a.m. It's just to say, yes, I sprinted, or yes, I am sprinting, or yes, I am working. And that usually would be about the time everybody was waking up, and then I need to take care of them. And I might just get an hour or an hour and a half in, which is not a satisfying meal, but it was so much better than not doing it. And then you felt like we're all in this together, and it was such a joy. And I'm coming back. I mean, there's no question. It's just a matter of getting this guy fixed up, and
poor Elizabeth.
Getting my head together. And
oh God, you'll get there. You'll totally get there, and we'll welcome you back at 7 on Ramona's Sprint Club anytime.
Thank you.
So very briefly, for those who don't know, Ramona de Felislong was an independent editor and author and memoirist who started this practice of bringing people together to start writing, to have 1 hour, one sacred hour of writing every day at 7 or whenever they can fit it in. And she started it on her personal page. She was very ill and died last October, but a couple months before she died, she moved it over to a Facebook group that a friend of hers, Wendy, whose last name I can't remember how to say, it's a Turkish name. Anyway, so we check in over there, and we all remember Ramona and think about her and have her as inspiration. And I'm so glad that you joined the group, because I've been part of it for a long, long time. And it starts off my writing day, like jump starts it every day.
Right.
Let's see. Are there audience questions that you haven't asked or you want to ask? You can put them in the chat. You can put them in Q&A. We don't have any in Q&A right now.
I think my sister asked a question.
Well, so she did. You talked about it a little bit. The ghosts. Okay. Do you believe in ghosts? And have you had any paranormal experiences?
Oh, those are interesting questions.
Yeah. Maybe you'd addressed it. But
yeah, that's right. I don't know. I mean, we've had little things. The funny thing is that my daughter, who's 10, has become a big ghost hunter. And this is not because of me. Like, it's not me saying, hey, let's get up and go worry about ghosts today. There's a ghost tour on the Cape that we've been going to for like 3 years, where you go to the most haunted jail in New England, or I don't know what. It's from 1640 or something. And first you walk around town and they tell you ghost stories, and then you go to the graveyard and he tells you stay away from the hill because that's where the dark creatures come and find you. And then at the end of the tour, you go to this haunted jail and they turn off the lights for a minute. Yeah, it's ridiculous. And I go there, my mind is open, I'm open to whatever happens, but I've never had anything happen to me. But she said that somebody grabbed her feet and something else, and she loves it, and we have to go this year again. So
is it like at Halloween time?
No, we go in the summertime. Like it's go to the Cape the last week of the summer. So we're going not next week, but the week after. And it's run by Derek, and he wears his Jaws shirt from the movie Jaws, and with the big shark mouth open. So it's just, it's just one of the ridiculous things we do on vacation.
That's fabulous. That's fabulous. I love it. I love it. Let's see. We don't have any Q&A. So here's a fun little question. Pizza or chocolate? These are flash questions.
No, no. I refuse. I cannot choose.
Well, then you can say both.
I must have both, or it's not a fair world.
All right. Okay, mountains or beach?
Oh, that's tough too. I guess beach by a narrow margin.
Okay. Reading thrillers or cozy mysteries?
Oh, I think more thrillers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wine or hot chocolate?
Wine, yes, please.
Okay. Come on over.
I'm on my way.
Okay. So, the ocean in winter. I think you mentioned it's a standalone, so there won't be a sequel to it.
I'm not planning one. But I do think about what happens next. And I think about the little boy, the story that he would have to tell. And I think about, I'm sorry, I'm trying to answer this or put this out there without spoilers. But I think that he would have quite an interesting story to tell, but I don't have any ideas specifically about anything that's, hearty enough to fill a whole book. But I am, the crime novel I'm working on is actually set in like a facsimile of the town I live in Georgetown, called Dennistown, which people in town might totally understand what that's a reference to. We have Camp Denison right here, and so it's a ripoff. But I'm changing it, so I feel like I'll change the name, and that way people can't complain. And it's kind of inspired by a would-be crime that was uncovered a few years ago, where there just was a house with a hermit, and the hermit actually died. And then somebody came forward and accused him of having done terrible things to a teenager. And then the FBI set up like a whole forensics unit right outside of his little hermit house. And they searched for, I don't know, several days. And what they found, they didn't find any evidence of a crime, but they did find a box full of identification cards and a mannequin and like weird videos. But that's fine for the fiction writer. That was enough, And my friend who's a real estate agent, the house went on the market, and so I talked her into taking me in there. And I will tell you, it was weird. Very strange. So that's the germ of the next book.
I look forward to reading that. Yeah.
Thank you.
If you want an advanced blurb, hit me up.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Of course. Yeah.
I would be honored.
Let's see. I don't think we have more questions. Anything else you want to tell us?
Well, Edith, can you tell me a little bit about your writing? And you know what? I was talking to somebody about cozy mysteries last week, and I would love for you to give me your definition of a cozy mystery. I'm wondering how close I was to being correct.
Sure. So I write 2 cozy series under the pen name Maddie Day and No Greater Crime. This series has puns in the title, obviously. This comes out August 24th, and it's the 9th book in the series. And I'm about to start writing book 11, so it's a really popular series set in a country store restaurant in southern Indiana. So cozies are they're a subset of the traditional mystery. So there's an amateur sleuth, somebody who it's not their job to solve a crime. They're not a police detective. They're not FBI. They're not a private investigator. They own a restaurant or they own a bike shop. So this is the 3rd Cozy Capers book group mysteries set on Cape Cod. The protagonist who owns a bike shop and book group that only reads cozy mysteries and helps her solve the crime. So it's very much character driven and community driven. So there's a community of the protagonist and whoever her regulars are. So in the country store, they're her co-chefs, they're the police lieutenant, her Aunt Adele, who has a sheep farm, a few regulars. And at the end of the story, of course, there's a dead body, but you don't see the blood spurting. You don't see the throat being slit. They find a dead body. And there's a bad guy, or 4. So you set up your plausible suspects. And by the end of the book, the justice has served the community. You know, the villain is dead, the victim is dead, and the villain goes to jail. But that's the most important thing. But it's this community-based. They can be a little lighter. They can be a slightly easier read. You're not going to feel worse about the world when you're done reading it. And frankly, that's the kind of books I like to read, that and historical mysteries. And tell me, the last year and a half, has the world been scary and messy enough? Do you want to feel worse about the world when you get done reading a book? No, I don't. So that's the kind of books that I write. So that's really a definition of a cozy. There's romance, but before it gets too exciting, they close the bedroom door, basically. And you might read, she swore like a sailor, or he let out a string of expletives, but you're not going to read the swear words. So it's kind of clean reading, books that my mother would have read. And she died before my first book came out. And she's the one who taught me to read mysteries. Like, we had a living room with tall ceilings full of bookcases full of mysteries.
Oh, wonderful.
And she would not read a book with an obscenity or with violence in it, so, or sex.
Interesting.
So that's a cozy. Miss Marple, Murder, She Wrote. Those are kind of definitions of cozies. Thank you for asking. Yeah, I love writing them, and people love reading them, and that's good. That's good.
I am reading The Changing Light. It's just in the other room.
A Changing Light, yeah. So that's the 7th Quaker Midwife mystery. And they're basically cozy, but they're shelved as historicals. And they can be a little darker, partly because of the history. Also in cozies, children and animals are never harmed, never murdered.
Oh, perfect.
They aren't in these books either, but occasionally a baby will die after birth, because that is unfortunately what happened in the late 1800s. But those books are set right here in Amesbury, and I've absolutely loved writing this.
Beautiful. It's beautiful. It's so fun reading about historical Amesbury, and then that particular one with the backdrop of tuberculosis, and
yeah,
it's very haunting. It's spooky.
Oh, thank you.
But beautiful, absolutely beautiful. I'm loving it.
Oh, good. Thank you so much.
Oh, yeah.
So I think Becca wanted to tie up a little bit. Just thank you for the honor of letting me interview you.
Thank
Elizabeth.
you.
So
thank
lovely.
you, Edith. Thank
really,
you. I'm so grateful. And thank you so much to Belmont Books for having us.
Yes,
yes, awesome.
Yes.
Thank you both so much. This was wonderful. Wow. Thank you so much for choosing us to be part of this event. This was awesome. And just a reminder that I dropped the link in the chat for everybody if they want to purchase both the books that we've talked about tonight. And I think that's all, unless anybody has any other words they want to say. But this was amazing. Thank you.
Thank you to everybody for coming too. Great.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you everybody for coming, and thank you, Edith, and thank you so much, Becca.
Welcome.
I really appreciate it.
So good to meet you both.
Yes, yes, yes.
All
Alrighty.
right. Have a great night,
care.
everyone.
Take
Bye.
care. Bye.